Hello wine people, welcome to Fortified Wines where we simplify wine. This is video number 41 in our series of videos where I answer multiple choice questions on specific topics for WSET Level 3 in Wines course preparation. In this video I'm going to be answering 45 multiple choice questions on port. This video and the whole video series is just one small part of our Fortified Wines study and support program, so if you are preparing or planning to start your WSET Level 3 in Wine course anywhere in the world, we have the program and I would love to help. Please reach out. This videos with multiple choice questions on fortified wines like sherry, port and fortified muscat is part of your learning outcome number 4, where on the multiple choice part of the theory exam you're going to get only 5 questions for multiple choice part, but if you saw the previous videos, you saw that videos are full of information. They're multiple choice questions that are testing your knowledge, but they're questions that are pointing out and giving you the information, what's the most important thing that you need to know. So let's start. What are the 2 main areas involved in port production? Porto and Vila Nova de Gaia and Douro wine region, Lisbon and Setúbal Peninsula, Alentejo, Ribatejo, Vinho Verde, Beiras. The correct answer is A. Porto, Vila Nova de Gaia, which is more for aging, and Douro wine region for port production. What are the 3 sub-regions of Douro vineyard area? Minho, Beiras, Trás-os Montes, Baixo Cargo, Cima Cargo and Douro Superior, Lisboa, Alentejo, Ribatejo, Setúbal, Algarve, Vinho Verde. Correct answer is B. Baixo Cargo, Cima Cargo and Douro Superior. What is the climate in Douro region? Warm continental, shielded by Atlantic winds by the Serra de Mourão mountain, cool maritime with frequent rain, hot desert-like with minimal rainfall, cold alpine with high diurnal range. Correct answer is A. Warm continental, that is shielded from the Atlantic by the Serra de Mourão mountain range. Which Douro subregion produces the lightest wines? Vila Nova de Gaia, Cima Corgo, Douro Superior, Baixo Corgo. The correct answer is D. Baixo Corgo, which is the closest to the Atlantic Ocean. Which Douro subregion produces the lightest wines? This is repeated. My apologies for this. So again, it's a repeated question, sorry. So it's again A. Baixo Corgo. Which Douro Superior region has the warmest climate? Cima Corgo, Baixo Corgo, Douro Superior, Porto. The correct answer is C. Douro Superior, which is further away from the Atlantic. It's bordering Spain. What feature of Douro's schist bedrock aids viticulture in the region? It fractures vertically, allowing vine roots to access deep water reserves. It reflects heat into the vines, aiding ripening. It increases acidity in the grapes. It provides nutrients to the wines. The correct answer is A. It fractures vertically, allowing wine roots to access deep water reserves. What is the traditional terracing system in Douro called? Socalcos, Patamaras, Vinho ao Alto, Pergola. The correct answer is, I believe, Socalcos. Let me just confirm. Socalcos, correct. So the Socalcos are very narrow terraced vineyards where mechanization is not allowed. What are the 5 preferred grape varieties in premium port production? Touriga Franca, Tinta Roriz, Tinta Barroca, Touriga Nacional, Tinta Cao, Cabernet Sauvignon, Merlot, Syrah, Malbec, Grenache, Riesling, Gewürztraminer, Chenin Blanc, Sauvignon Blanc, Pinot Noir, Chardonnay, Pinot Blanc, Pinot Gris, Gamay, Sangiovese. The correct answer is A. Tinta Franca, Tinta Roriz, Tinta Barroca, Touriga Nacional, Tinta Cao. At what alcohol level is port fermentation stopped by fortification? 15-16, 10-12, 5-9, 19-20. The correct answer is C. 5-9. So the question was, when does the fortification happen? At which alcohol level? When the wine ferments? At 5-9. What spirit is used to fortify port? Aguardente, grape spirit, 77% alcohol by volume. Brandy, rum, vodka. Correct answer is A, aguardente, a local spirit, neutral spirit. What is the purpose of food trading in port production? To blend the grape varieties evenly, to reduce the acidity in the must, to cool the fermentation process, to extract color and tannins during fermentation. Correct answer is D, to extract color and tannins during fermentation as soon as possible. What is the modern alternative to food trading in premium port production? Robotic lagares, tank fermentation, basket press, carbonic maceration. Correct answer is A, robotic lagares. What is the alcohol content range of fortified wine when it's finished? 14-15, 19-22, 11-13, 24-26. Correct answer is B, 19 to 22. What is the purpose of Villanova de Gaia in port production? Cooler coastal climate is ideal for slow maturation, high altitude vineyards producing unique flavors, primary site for fermentation and blending, growing white grape varieties for blending. The correct answer is A, cooler coastal climate ideal for slow maturation. Before, port was mandatory to be aged in Villanova de Gaia. Now it's no longer the case. What type of oak vessels is used for port maturation? Clay amphora, small barriques, large barrels called pipes, concrete vats. The correct answer is C, large barrels called pipes. Slightly smaller than barrels used in sherry. What defines ruby ports? A predominant primary fruit character aged in large oak vessels or stainless steel, a sweet wine with oxidative aging in pipes, a blend of white and rosé wines, a sparkling version of port aged in stainless steel. The correct answer is A, predominant primary fruit character aged in large oak vessels or stainless steel for a short period of time. What distinguishes tawny ports from ruby ports? Tawny ports undergo long oxidative aging, developing nutty and caramel flavors. Tawny ports are aged biologically under floor yeast. Ruby ports are always blended with white wines. Tawny ports are aged exclusively in stainless steel. Correct answer is A. Tawny ports undergo long oxidative aging, developing nutty and caramel aromas, flavors. What are the aging requirements for tawny ports with the age indication? They must undergo biological aging for at least 2 years, 1 to 3 for entry-level tawny ports, a minimum of 5 years in large barrels, 10, 20, 30, or 40 years. So the correct answer is D, 10, 20, 30, or 40 years. You're going to find this on the bottles of these ports. Tawny ports age, this is misspelled, number indicates youngest wine in the blend. True or false? The correct answer is B, false. This number indicates the average age of the whole blend. What are single quinta vintage ports? Ports made from a single estate grapes in non-declared vintage years, a blend of multiple estate grapes during declared vintage years, wines aged biologically under floor yeast, rosé ports made from a single grape variety. Correct answer is A, ports made from a single estate grapes in non-declared vintage years. Basically, vintage ports need to be, the vintage needs to be declared as a vintage. For single quinta vintage port, the government doesn't need to declare it. The state can declare it by itself. What is the difference between LBV, late bottle vintage, and vintage ports? LBV ports are bottled after 4 to 6 years of aging, while vintage ports are bottled after 2 years. LBV ports are always sweetened, while vintage ports are dry. Vintage ports are aged oxidatively, while LBV ports are not. LBV ports are blended from multiple vintages, while vintage ports are single vintage wines. So the correct answer is A. LBV ports are bottled after 4 to 6 years of aging, while vintage ports are bottled after 2 years. The idea is for the vintage port to be developing this tertiary character with long aging in the bottle. What style of port is primarily designated for immediate consumption? LBV port, unfiltered, vintage port, single quinta vintage port, ruby port. The correct answer is D, ruby port. What distinguishes reserve tawny ports from standard tawny ports? Reserve tawny ports are aged for a minimum of 6 years in the wood. They're aged exclusively in stainless steel. They're blended with white wines for a sweeter profile. Reserve tawny ports are biologically aged underfloor yeast. The correct answer is A. Reserve tawny ports are aged for a minimum of 6 years in wood. Before what time from the vintage must vintage ports need to be bottled? 1 year, 6 months, 4 years, 3 years. So I would assume that it's B, 3 years. Let me just confirm. Second year after I must be bottled. Okay, yeah, the correct answer is 3 years. So in the book it says that it needs to be second year after it needs to be released second year after the harvest, and wine must be bottled no later than the 3rd year. So D, 3 years. What type of aging gives aged tawny ports their nutty and caramelized flavors? Oxidative aging in wooden barrels, biological aging under floor yeast, aging in stainless steel tanks, carbonic maceration before aging. The correct answer is A, oxidative aging in wooden barrels. What is the primary function of pipes in port production? To ferment the must before fortification, to allow slow oxidative aging in large wooden barrels, to increase acidity in the wine, to blend wines from different vintages. The correct answer is B, to allow slow oxidative aging in large wooden barrels. Which is not Douro subregion? Douro Superior, Cima Corgo, Baixa Corgo, Vila Nova de Gaia. The correct answer is D, Vila Nova de Gaia. How does fortification process affect the sweetness of port? It increases acidity in the final product. It removes sugar by enhancing alcohol levels. It oxidizes the wine for a drier profile. It halts the fermentation, leaving residual sugar in the wine. The correct answer is D. It halts the fermentation, resulting in residual sugar in the wine. What distinguishes single quinta ports from LBV ports? Single quinta ports are single estate wines, while LBV ports are from the blended sources. LBV ports are always dry, while single quinta are sweet. Single quinta undergoes oxidative aging, while LBV ports do not. LBV ports are unfiltered, while single quinta ports are filtered. So the correct answer is A. Single quinta ports are single estate wines, while LBV ports are blend of grapes from different vineyards. What flavor profile is typical of tawny port? Citrus and green apple with high acidity, bold tannins with fresh berry flavors, nutty, caramel and dried fruit notes due to oxidative aging, sweet tropical flavors with low alcohol content. The correct answer is C, nutty, caramel, dried fruit notes due to oxidative aging. What type of port is designated for long-term bottle aging? Tawny port, Ruby Reserve port, vintage port, rosé port. The correct answer is C, vintage port. What defines LBV ports? Label unfiltered. They may form sediment and require decanting. They are aged for a minimum of 10 years. They are blended from multiple vintages. They are aged exclusively in stainless steel tanks. So unfiltered LBV ports are ports that are not filtered, and they may develop sediment in the bottle and may need decanting and are great value for money. What colors can port be? Only red, red, white and rosé, only white, red, white and sparkling. Correct answer is B, red, white and rosé. What is the function of the Serra do Morao in the Douro region? It protects the region from Atlantic winds, creating a warm continental climate. It provides a cooling effect that slows grape ripening. It increases rainfall in the vineyards. It reduces the diurnal temperature range. The correct answer is A. It protects the region from Atlantic winds, creating a warm continental climate. What are the patamaras in Douro region? Wider terraces designated for mechanization, a traditional foot trading method, steep slopes with no terraces, vertical rows of wines planted along hillsides. So Socalcos, Patamaras and Vinho Alto. So Patamaras are wider. The correct answer is A. Wider terraces designated for mechanization. What does Vino Alto mean in Douro viticulture? Vertically planted vines along slopes without terraces. Wines made exclusively from high-altitude vineyards, wines blended with multiple vintages, the process of crushing grapes using vertical presses. So the correct answer is A, vertically planted vines along slopes with no terraces. So Calcos and Patamaras. So Calcos are have retained walls, no mechanization. Patamaras still terraced, but can have some mechanization, and then Vinho Alto, no mechanization. I mean, mechanization is suitable for this kind of vineyards. How long does port fermentation typically last? 7 to 10 days, 24 to 36 hours, 14 to 21 days, over 1 month. The correct answer is B, 24 to 36 hours. So now you can understand why food trading and fast extraction of color and tannin is important. What are autovinifiers and how they're used in port production? Automated system that use carbon dioxide pressure to pump juice over the cap for extraction. Tanks used to ferment port exclusive without fortification. Mechanized press that replicate food trading. Devices that age port without oxidation. This is actually a very important question that could come up as a short written answer, and I would recommend really understanding this autovinifiers. The correct answer is A, automated system that uses carbon dioxide pressure to pump juice over the cap extraction and doesn't require electricity. What are different types of ruby port? Ruby, reserve ruby, late bottle vintage, LBV and vintage, ruby, tawny, colhetti and crusted, reserve ruby, aged tawny, vintage tawny, rosé, white and tawny. So the correct answer is A, ruby, reserve ruby, LBV port and vintage. I mean, ruby category means that the wines are dominated by intense fruit character versus tawny, which are dominated by oxidative character in the wine. What are the different types of tawny port? White tawny, red tawny, standard tawny, reserve tawny, aged tawny, 10, 20, 30 years. Tawny with floor, tawny rosé, tawny reserve, crusted tawny, and LBV tawny. Correct answer is B. Tawny, reserve tawny, aged tawny with indication 10, 20, 30, 40 years. What is a vintage port vintage? A specific year when conditions are ideal and the producers declare the wines as vintage. A wine blended from multiple years for consistency. A tawny port aged in oak for a single year. A sparkling port from a declared year. The correct answer is A, but the point with the vintage port is that it's not that the producers can declare the vintage port. The government needs to declare that that particular vintage was great, and wines can be bottled as vintage port. Usually there's like 2 to 4 vintages in a decade that are declared as vintage. How often are vintage port declared? Once a decade for consistency, every year without exception, 3 to 4 times a decade depending on exceptional vintages, only once every 25 years. So the correct answer is C, 3 to 4 times a decade. Why are ruby ports not typically meant for long-term aging? They are bottled young to retain their fresh fruity character with minimum oxidative aging. They're heavily oxidized during production, limiting aging potential. They are biologically aged under floor yeast, which reduces their longevity. They're blended with white wine, which prevents further maturation. The correct answer is A. They're bottled young to retain their fresh fruity character with minimal oxidative aging. I know that in the previous question I said that vintage port is a ruby style port, but vintage ports, they have They're bottled early after 2 to 3 years after aging, also not aging in an oxidative way like tawny ports, and they have so much concentration that they can last for decades. Where a simple ruby port is just simple and fruity, doesn't really have the structure and the concentration to age. Last question: what distinguishes a single Quinta vintage port from a declared vintage port? A single Quinta vintage ports come from a single estate and are often made in a non-declared vintage years. Single Quinta vintage ports are blended from multiple estates during declared vintages. Single Quinta vintage ports undergo longer oxidative aging. Single Quinta vintage ports are exclusively biologically aged under floor. So single Quinta means single vineyard. And like I explained, for our vintage ports that are not single Quintas, the government needs to declare for that year to be vintage, good enough for a vintage, so then the wineries can declare it. But single Quinta, meaning single producers from a single estate, can declare a vintage every year. Nice. Wine people, thanks so much for watching this video. I hope they're helping in your preparation. Please like, comment, subscribe. Let us know how we can give more value to you, for you to be successful. If you need assistance, I would love to be part of your wine journey. I'll see you in the last video for multiple choice questions, where we're going to talk about fortified muscats. Stay thirsty and wise.